Hello, my name is Ian Flores and this is my individual learning report. Here's the answer to the questions. Why is it important to use valuable sources by type, purpose, and reliability to understand the past? What are the limitations and how could you address them? So we know there are two types of valuable sources, primary and secondary. How can they help us to understand the past? Well, primary sources narrates us the emotions that a person that was living through that historical period had during, the events. And secondary sources can give us a lot of information about the context, why certain things happened, the way they happened, and at the end of the day, it gives us a lot of information about the subject. What are the limitations? Well, a primary source could describe the emotions, but maybe the person that wrote it didn't know the entire context of why things were happening, and that can really affect the information. Secondary sources, on the other hand, because they have the perspective from an author, maybe he agreed with the person that started the war, and that point of view really can affect the way that we see the information. So how can we address this subject or these problems? Well, we can investigate on both primary and secondary sources, because the primary sources can give us an idea of what people were feeling, and secondary sources can give us a lot of information about the context. So both of them are really valuable. Question number 2. What do you learn about your identity and your classmates' identities through this activity? So about my identity, I didn't really learn a lot. I just found it really interesting for me to kind of think about objects that could represent me. For example, a coin from my church that represents my faith, a photograph of me with fossils that represent my love for the dinosaurs. The document was a book that I wrote for a school project. So it was really interesting to explain this to a classmate. What did I learn about my classmate identity? So my classmate was Iker, and what I learned about him, first of all, from his object, which was his phone. At first I thought, maybe he just likes to be on social media, but no, he uses his phone to communicate with friends that he doesn't have, he cannot see in person. So it's really important for him because he can stay communicated with friends, with people that he cares about. His photo is a collage of many things he likes, hobbies, places he wants to visit, like London, Paris, things he doesn't like also. And his identification, was his document. And his identification, at the end of the day, really tells, this is my name, this is who I am, this represents me. So it was really interesting for me to kind of hear how he described these objects, and it really gave me a whole lot of idea of who he is and how he feels about himself. How do elements of the past contribute to recognize my identity? Well, at the end of the day, I think there are two ways we can think about this. The historical elements of maybe the past of my country, and at the same time of the past of my family, because things that happen, maybe the independence of Mexico, affect how society in this country is. And at the same time, what happened, maybe a choice or decision that a grandparent of mine did really affects right now the present, or why my family is the way it is. And it helps me to recognize my identity, because at the end of the day, it gives me a perspective of where do I come from, why I am the way I am, and what things I have to change to be a better person. So that will be all. Thank you so much for watching.